This story happened back in 2017. I was trick-or-treating when my legs started to hurt like hell, but thankfully my house was nearby, so I walked home. My dad checked on me and said that he was going to be at the house across the lawn. I said okay, and my dad left. I was laying on the couch eating some candy when suddenly my body went numb and I couldn't move. My vision got weird. The best way to put it is seeing big black snowflakes. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I was suddenly able to move my head and looked into the other room, where I saw a tall figure walking very slowly, but then it all ended and I was able to move once again. I told my mom about it, along with a few of my friends. If any of you have any good explanations on why this happened, please tell me. When I was younger, I'd go visit my grandparents all the time. They lived in a one-floor house with an unfinished basement. I never liked it down there. It felt small for a big basement. There was a little door down there that was for storage, and I always got a horrible feeling when going close to it. And let me add that this was a newer house that was about 6 years old. Now, during the time I was about 6 or 7, I felt so uncomfortable going down there, even when I was with someone. I didn't like it. I remember going down there with my grandma to help with something. She had to run upstairs because someone rang the doorbell. She said she would be right back, even though she knew how I felt about being alone down there. But I nodded and said okay. She was gone, and I was alone, and I started to get a bad feel in the pit of my stomach. I didn't move and didn't want to, even though the lights were on. Now this is where everything started happening, and it still gives me chills. The lights started to flicker, and I started to hear noises, and what sounded like talking, and it was not coming from upstairs, but in the storage room. I heard someone say my name. Here is the part that freaks me out the most. The voice sounded like my grandma. I was confused as hell. How am I hearing her when she is upstairs? I didn't want to move, but me being the curious one I am, I started moving towards the storage room door. The closer I got, the worse the bad feeling came. When I got to the door, the lights turned off in the basement. I wanted to run upstairs and hide, go home, somewhere that wasn't the basement. I heard my name again for the second time, my grandma's voice asking me to open the door to help her, so I did. And I regret it. I couldn't see anything. It was pitch black. I couldn't hear anything but faint laughing that felt like forever. But then the laughing stopped and the lights turned back on in the basement. And I felt a little bit better with the lights back on, but the downside, I could see a little in the storage room. I saw a small clown doll in the storage room, and my grandma hates clowns with a passion and wants nothing to do with them. So why is there a clown doll? I have no damn idea. Then the lights turned on in the storage room. I saw something red that looked like blood all over the place. I screamed and blacked out, and the next thing I knew, I was laying on the couch, my grandma looking at me and asking if I was okay. I have no idea if that was real or a dream, but it sure as hell felt real. Before I begin, I'm a 16-year-old male. About 3 years ago, I was in Virginia visiting family over summer. We were right outside the DC area and staying in a 2-story house near the freeway. On the other side of the freeway was a forest. So my mom, her boyfriend Eric, and I were all staying with Eric's parents. We had brought some night vision binoculars and decided that tonight was the perfect time to use them. So after dinner, we gear up and head out. We pass under the freeway and head into the woods. When we get about 5 minutes into the forest, we set down our bag and take out our binocs. My mom looks around with them for a while, seeing a few squirrels here and there. She gets tired of them and passes them to me. I look around for a while, being careful not to look at the freeway for fear of being blinded. I spot something behind a tree about 50 feet to our left. I concentrate on it, trying to figure out what it is. It looks like a pale, bald, anorexic man looking straight at us from behind the tree. I get a bit uneasy, but I'm hesitant to believe it's really there. I ask Eric to take a look, just in case. To my despair, he sees it too. He describes it much the same way I did. Now, Eric is a former amateur boxer, and I train MMA almost every day, but neither one of us wants to stick around with that thing. We start heading back to the house, crossing under the freeway. We take another look behind us as a car comes by. All three of us see glowing eyes lit up by the headlights on the other side of the freeway. We say fuck that and head back to the house. When we get back, Eric's parents are asleep, and my mom and Eric go upstairs to the guest room. There's only one guest room, so I have the couch downstairs. I'm a little too excited after seeing the thing in the woods, so I end up staying up all night. Around 3 a.m., I'm watching TV and start hearing footsteps above me. I immediately remember our earlier encounter and panic a little. I try to calm down and tell myself it's just one of the dogs, or maybe someone who couldn't sleep. I keep hearing the footsteps for a while, until I hear a doorknob jiggle. I find it weird that they're trying to open a locked door, but try to ignore it. They stop, walk around for a few more minutes, and then it's quiet again. I stay up until the sun starts coming up and then pass out. My mum wakes me up and I remember the footsteps from the night before. I describe what happened and ask if one of them got up at any time. She says no, and I think it must have been one of the dogs. That is, until she tells me the room above me is the office. No one was in the office, and the door stays locked at night. My heart sinks as I piece it all together. I don't know if it was that thing for sure, but I think it was. I've done a lot of research since then, trying to figure out what that thing was that night. I found 2 creatures that seemed to match it. I think it was either a skinwalker or Wendigo. Whichever one it was, I'm just thankful that door was locked. I know I wouldn't be able to fight that thing no matter how tough I am. To add some context to the story, I am female, and at the time this took place I was 14. Anyway, this happened in September. My friend, who I'm going to call Alice for the story, got some all-access passes to a fair, and she invited me to go with her and her grandma. That Saturday she picked me up and we went to the fair. We had been there since 6 that evening and it was about 10, so it was really dark. We had been going on rides and I had gotten nauseous, so we decided to go on one more ride then head home. While walking to the ride, this carny running one of the stands stared at me. He looked like he was in his late 40s. He had dark blonde hair that was greasy, missing and darkened teeth, and some tattoos on his left arm. He then put both his index fingers into his cheeks, crossed his eyes, then twisted his hands making a weird face. Then after no reaction from me, he made a disappointed and offended face. Then he said, "Smile." I still just stared as we were walking his way to get to the ride. "Smile," he said louder, then he screams, "Fucking smile." I jumped back, it seemed with the many people around. No one heard him say that last part except me, even Alice, who then said, "She's sick." I then grabbed her hand and brushed past him. I told her what he said, and she was shocked. On our way back from the ride, we had to pass by his stand again. While walking by it, he kept trailing behind us, trying to get our attention. Then, after we ignored him, I heard him scoff, "Fine then." I know this story doesn't seem that scary, but it was at the time, and I can't help but wonder why he wanted me to smile and what could have happened if we didn't ignore him.